Did you know that there was a time before crafting, before terraforming, before Tarantula Island? Us historians refer to this period as 2013, one of Nintendo's darkest ages as the Wii U struggled to keep itself relevant to consumers.
Yeah, look like I've been upgraded.
But it was in this desperate time that the 3DS would show its true potential to carry the market. Zelda, Pokemon, Fire Emblem, Donkey Kong, Luigi's Mansion, Shin Megami Tensei, Ace Attorney, all in just a year to make 3DS owners feel like royalty. But every kingdom has its king, and every Animal Crossing has its new leaf. Animal Crossing New Leaf may only be turning 8 this summer, but I think it's going to hold the top spot in the franchise for a long time, so to celebrate, I want to recount this game and go over why I think it's the best, but also cover its origins, mechanics, personal memories, and of course, compare it with other entries. A small disclaimer, I won't be covering any of the Welcome Amiibo update because of the length of this video already. If anything, that'll be a separate episode. Today, it's just the glory of OG New Leaf. But in order to discover why this game was so legendary, we need to first go back to its roots where it all began. City folk. Let me quickly summarize one of the points I made in the Wild World video. This is a good game. This is a good game, but this is less of a good game because it is the same game. Animal Crossing City Folk was amazing by my standards, but not by the general population's. It's not even like a New Horizons type of situation where a lot of people bought the game and were then gradually disappointed. They didn't even give this game a chance, just look at these sales. So in response to the poor reception of City Folk, the team sat down. They started brainstorming ways to make the sequel better. And then, Nintendo did something that they almost never do. They listened to the fans. If City Folk was a game that most people found repetitive of its older sibling, then the team wanted to create something entirely revolutionary. Something that would refresh the Animal Crossing formula, while also flipping its general format inside out. They wanted to turn over a new leaf, and thus the game was conceived. Animal Crossing New Leaf 3DS. It was announced at E3 2010 alongside some screenshots and wait a minute. Legs? Pants? Objects outside the house? New fruit? Oh wait, those are apples. They're in the old games. Okay, hold on, we'll get to those. Can I just say how much I love when this happens? When we get a screenshot of an upcoming game or console and people around the world pour hours of speculation into a JPEG. That's how you know you've created something truly beloved by your fan base, and this game would absolutely deliver that high. Anyways, the news eventually broke that in Animal Crossing 3DS, you would play as the mayor and help design the town, and that was a huge deal. See, up to this point, the Animal Crossing series was always very careful about how much control it was handing over to the player. You were given the tools to change things about your own character, but not so much the others. It was a very established balance. You and the animals were equal, one nation under God, or Tortimer. So the opportunities implied by a cabinet position made everyone very curious about the direction they were heading in. E3 2011 was where things really started to take off though. For one, the actual 3DS console had released, getting people more excited to see a next-gen Animal Crossing. And two, they dropped what is probably my second most watched video game trailer of all time. There were tents, there was stealth, there was swimming, seasons, clocks, Zelda, pecan, and that main theme, oh good golly. If there were any doubts about how serious Nintendo was with this entry, they were sent straight to hell by this 2-minute teaser. I watched this so many times on my 3DS as a kid, just dreaming of the day I could get to play it. But still no release date? Then Nintendo did that super cool thing that they do where they don't do anything at all for like a year. Fall of 2012, we got a few more trailers. New Leaf was decided on as the official name, the game released in Japan, and we basically got all the information we wanted, just not a Western release date. Until the Valentine's Day Direct of 2013, it was finally announced that on June 9th we would receive the game in North America. And yet on that day, we got much more than the game. We got a renaissance.
Okay, that's all the time I've got. I gotta get back to playing Animal Crossing New Leaf on my Nintendo 3DS.
Animal Crossing New Leaf launched June 9th, 2013 to welcoming sales and universal praise. Its release at the beginning of summer helped to tie it in with the season and avoid the holiday window the previous two games encountered. I remember going to pick this up on the Sunday before my last day of school, innocent teenage me not knowing how many nights I wouldn't sleep that summer. But I feel like that's how New Leaf existed for lots of people, as an ode to the good peaceful feelings of summertime, something that I'm sure wasn't entirely unintentional on Nintendo's part.
今度新しく登場するキャラクターっていうのがありますよね。
はい。今回プレイヤーが村長っていう役割があるので、それをサポートするキャラクターとして秘書ちゃんがいます。
New Leaf begins very similar to its three older siblings. You start in first person, then end up in third person in town. But this time you get mistaken for the new mayor. From here, there's a lot more freedom than previously. Not only do you get to choose one of 4 town layouts, but you also get to pick where your house goes. Working for Tom Nook? Nah, instead you follow Isabel's advice for living in town and increasing approval rating, and this starts one of the most wonderful relationships in the game, but more on that later. After getting Nook to upgrade your tent into a house, you receive the development permit and you're basically all set. At first, it doesn't really appear like much has changed from the previous games, but mark my words, I have never seen Nintendo work harder to correct themselves and win back over disillusioned fans. I'm not even sure they knew exactly why everyone thought City Folk was repetitive, but it was clear they weren't taking any chances. I won't be able to cover everything they added, or then this video would be hours long, so let's start off with the existing things. More villagers, more personalities, more fruits, more furniture series, more furniture, more KK Slider songs, more shops, more bugs, more fish, more hairstyles, more flowers, more emotions. The amount of content put in was ridiculous. Nintendo was laying it on so thick, they should have rated this game M for Mama Is I'm never making that joke again. And that's not even counting all the brand new materials like pants, socks, swimsuits, diving creatures, public work projects, all of which had a large amount of variety. With New Leaf though, the most impressive part to me was less about what you could have and more about what you could do. In the same interview where Iwata addressed the poor sales of City Folk, he made it known that the team wanted New Leaf's opportunities to be shockingly vast. New Leaf was to have features not yet seen in the series for players to be astounded by, saying, "Wow, you can do this thing?" Or, "It goes that far?" And guys, that is exactly how this game came across. From City Folk to New Leaf, there was such a pile of all new mechanics that at first I kept forgetting I was playing an Animal Crossing game. I just want to gloss over a few of my favorites. The big thing this entry depicted all over the trailers and on the front cover was being able to build and decorate your town with structures known as public work projects, or as I like to call them, whoop. Already, this change made New Leaf physically appear as such a different game with a much livelier environment. It might seem kind of obvious and insignificant as a concept now, but in 2013 it was revolutionary. As the mayor, you could also enact ordinances that would change the town's public interest. Wealthy, which would make everything cost and sell for a little bit more. Early Bird, which had your neighbors wake up and businesses open earlier. Night Owl, which did the exact opposite. And Beautiful, which kept the flowers high and the weeds and trash low. Initially, I thought the Wealthy ordinance was the best, but once you're good on money and upgrades, it kind of just makes things more expensive than they need to be, and the last thing I want to do is give capitalism steroids. Plus, since I time travel, the early and late ordinances were useless, and the Beautiful helped to cut down on weeds and helped to obtain a certain badge, which I haven't talked about. So badges were essentially an achievement system, although most of these are just long-term frequency goals that don't really encourage any sort of challenge that isn't just keep playing the game and doing things and Finny Finn will show up. That said, I loved that everyone else could see your badges. Look how many bells I have, you filthy peasants, yeah. You don't belong here, coward. Go back to playing Heroes of Ruin. Hehehe. Damn. But what might be the most stunning is the use of custom designs. Via the 3DS camera and QR codes, you could download custom designs from anywhere and put them anywhere, allowing a whole new league of creativity with furniture, clothing, cardboard cutouts, and you get the picture. This allowed such a highly personalized level of self-expression into Animal Crossing, and topped off with the brand new Dream Suite that allowed you to visit uploaded towns online. I don't know how you would ever get bored of seeing just what people could create. Also, you can swim, which is a big deal because I can't.
やっぱたまらんな。
These are some of the big things New Leaf added, but I can't leave out the little details which for me give the game its sophisticated charm. Things like all of the villager personalities having a different voice, or how when you put colored lights inside you can see them outside the house in the windows and doorway. Or how you can sit on rocks, or dance at a club, or the little designs in the tree stumps. When you run in one direction and turn real fast, it makes a noise. When it rains, the frogs don't carry umbrellas anymore because they're amphibians. Dumb but intricate things like this show us just how much effort the developers put in for us. Even in the smallest ways, they made Animal Crossing New Leaf feel like such a brand new experience. That also carries a lot of its roots. Easily one of the greatest things about the Animal Crossing series is how each iteration feels like less of a continuation of ideas and more like a special project due to the vastly different area in which each excels. Or put simply, it doesn't really follow a sequential format. However, this is actually one of my favorite traits about Animal Crossing, that the best thing about every game is something different from the next. One game has the best villagers, one game has the best world building, one game has the best fucking sale price, I don't know. It's just, there's no game in the series that combines these best factors. There's no game that feels like an all-in-one definitive experience. But there is certainly a game that comes the closest, and by far, that's New Leaf. Things that were previously the centerpiece in old games are now just minor perks in this one. Main Street, for example, is this game's shopping district and can be seen as the evolution of City Folk City, only with more development as you progress and the ability to bring your friends along. City Folk also removed one of the best features from Wild World, the villager photographs, but New Leaf brought these back as well to give yet another system of fulfillment to the player. Yet, the game that has the most amount of callbacks is GameCube, like an odd number, to the point where this feels like some sort of soft reboot. Both games have the exact same opening, with you talking to Rover on a train. He even pokes fun at this in New Leaf. The train is also driven by Porter the Monkey, whose only other appearance was in the GameCube version. There's Tortimer Island, a beloved new feature which is very similar to GameCube's Hermit Island, only on Tortimer Island you play games with friends and buy expensive foreign furniture. There's the Town Tree, which acts as the town's event spot, similar in appearance to the Wishing Well of GameCube. The post office music from the GameCube sounds like this. And in New Leaf, it's like this. Speaking of the music though, actually hold on, because we gotta give the music its own chapter. Most of what I have to say about New Leaf's music I've already said in the video where I rank all the hourly songs, but once again, I cannot stress enough what a range of emotions the soundtrack effuses. You're happy? Okay, boom, 11 a.m. Feeling sad and a little lost? Alright, try 6 p.m. Questioning all of your life decisions and wondering if your wife is going to leave you, but asking yourself if it's your fault for driving her away? We have 1 a.m. for that. And just getting off work, sitting down with your feet up, got your 3DS in one hand, Wild Berry Pop-Tart in the other, this is for the 5 p.m. listeners. Ooh. Some others I enjoy include the retail theme, which feels like it incorporates the mom and pop cozy atmosphere of the store into those chimes, the fireworks theme, which removes any percussion so that the only booms you hear are the explosives themselves, and of course the main theme, which has brought me to tears on more than one occasion every time I hear it for the first time in a while. You just know that piano plays and you just know what a good time you're about to have in the world you're visiting. Ugh. Like, how does sitting at the town tree and viewing how far you've come not make you lose your composure each time? God bless you, Totaka. Mwah, 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 you genius composer, you. Alright, so I've gotten way off track. That's okay, New Leaf is a big game, it has a lot to cover. What I was trying to say though is that New Leaf fused the best parts of all the games before it. It was the culmination of every success Nintendo had implemented up to that point, almost. Because I can't deny that, for as many things as New Leaf had, flaws were also one of them. No game is perfect, and if I didn't address that, then I wouldn't be telling the full story, so let's look at some of the uglier parts of New Leaf. Want to know something else Nintendo decided to bring back from City Folk? It's our good old friend Grass Decay, Because now with you actually wanting to put more hours into the game, why not punish the player? For some people, you can actually use this mechanic to shape your town very nice, especially natural aesthetics, but for most people, it was a nightmare that punished you for moving. They also managed to take the fun out of balloon presents, where in old games you get something totally random, and in New Leaf you only get balloon furniture and it gets old real quick. Personally, I never cared for the set. I only shot them down to work towards the badge, but even if you did want the whole set, the amount of repeats was disgusting. I had like 7 balloon sofas before I had the bed. And then, I tell you the nerve of these developers. They had specialized events for each region around the world so that the game could fit with various cultures, and I will give it to them, that's pretty cool, but I always found this oddly considerate for a game that won't let you change the color of your fucking skin. The only way to do so is to stand outside in the summer and get tan just like in the previous games. How this eluded them is beyond me, but it takes me back to one of my favorite Reddit threads. Why do I have to be white? To be fair, this is a problem in all the games, but why go take the extra step to help more people feel included just to make them feel not represented? While all these problems were on the minor side and did nothing to stop New Leaf in its glorious tracks, a lot of fundamental gameplay issues people had actually revolved around your life as the mayor. It wasn't that they didn't like it, but rather saw it as limited capacity for what it could truly be. Public works projects not only costed lots of money and had to be built one day at a time, the way of obtaining them was also a bit complicated. You had to wait for specific villager personalities to come and suggest them to you. For example, the jungle gym would be recommended by a jock, or the pyramid by a smug villager. But it was the waiting aspect that drove people up a wall. Like, I have some 700 hours in my original file, and I still feel like I'm missing over half of these projects because my villagers are so slow in suggesting them to me. Also, as the mayor, you can't choose where villager houses go, and then they move over top of your very stylized custom path and ruin everything and just... Come on, Colton, you know I spent hours making that cloud bridge walkway. Actually, come to think of it, the villagers seem to cause the most amount of hassle in this game. Not because they're uppity and in your way on purpose, it's because they're the exact opposite. And this would lead to what is considered the biggest flaw with Animal Crossing New Leaf. You see, in order to become the mayor and govern the villagers had to become, in a state, more governable. I'm not exactly sure the word I'm looking for, but the villagers became less resistant, less chatty, less spontaneous, and much more tame. Their conversations don't last nearly as long, and what they say is put in the most supportive and agreeable manner. This was also the debut of a new conversational format where when you speak to the villagers, you are given the chance to go further or just cancel. It would later return for New Horizons. There's nothing horrible about the format, but rather the fact that it is a format and that every animal, regardless of personality, follows it, makes them feel less authentic and unique. These changes were obviously met with backlash, and people were quick to point out that the series script had been on a downward trend for years, but honestly, I get it. The spotlight was shifting. It was no longer about the villagers and you, but rather you and the villagers. You're the mayor, after all, the star of the show, and while it's unfortunate, the characters kind of had to take a back seat to let you do your thing. Let's imagine an alternate universe real quick, where in Animal Crossing on GameCube, you get to be the mayor. Now, would you really want to be the one tasked with guiding these bratty, stuck-up, bitch-ass animals? Well, maybe. But if Nintendo had made the game that stressful, then it probably would not have grown into its comforting escapist reputation that it has today. And once again, we have to remember that Nintendo wasn't going to risk repeating any trends in the series tied to earlier games after City Folk was slammed for being a carbon copy. It was a gamble, arguably one that didn't work out in the game's favor, but this is the hand we were dealt. And I'm here to tell you today that it's really not that bad. Perhaps it is the presence of some other game that has made me realize what shitty NPCs actually are, but these are not as bad as some people make them out to be. Sure, the villagers are not mean. They don't have as many quotes that feel like a backhand straight to your ego. They are not hilariously overdramatic about small matters. But they still feel so alive as the devices intended for you, the player. They go places, they talk to each other, they talk about each other, they ask favors, they come over, they play games with you, and they react to the changes that you make around town. town as the mayor. Plus, there are still some wonderfully strange pieces of dialogue that spice up these characters a bit. But who I really think steals the show are all the special NPCs. Isabelle is easily the cake taker. Even from the first trailer, you see her as a persistent but caring sidekick who always helps you to get your work done. She goes so far for you, which is probably why the world fell in love with her, and definitely no other reason. Reese and Cyrus are a lovely couple who are so pleasant to visit with. Their store reminds you of the special treatment you get when you choose to shop local. Phineas feels like the dad I never had, and by that I mean one that was proud of me. Grams and the rest of the island staff feel like your cousins, but not the sketchy kind. I mean, there's Cap'n for that. On top of this, there's also the not so nice characters like Phyllis, Rossetti, Gracie, and all the others that refresh your GameCube memories, and that no matter how nice of a person you may be, you still gotta deal with bitches. But I love them all the same. There's so many characters to see in just one town that you will never ever feel alone despite any lackluster presence. And in the event that you did, then there was the multiplayer. New Leaf multiplayer was better than ever before. Or after. With up to 4 friends in a town, you could go shopping together, or play games on Tortimore Island, or go dancing at a club, or cut down all someone's trees to piss them off. Man, I am such a valued friend. The all-new Best Friend feature also allows you to know when select people are online, and you can communicate with them even when they're not in your town. Perhaps the only area it was downgraded in from previous games was communication, where City Folk had the Wii Speak for voice chat, and New Leaf had the touchscreen keyboard back from Wild World. Although the lack of voice chat could definitely be debated as a good or bad thing. I guess at its core, the multiplayer wasn't too different, even with a lot more activities happening, but at the time, I remember all the frantic online buzz, and up to that point, we had never seen the series hit that level that it did. The New Leaf economy was flourishing. People were connecting on GameFAQs or Reddit or Beltree forums to buy, sell, and trade in-game items. This was also the first time I witnessed people go to eBay to sell bells and items for real-world money, which is not allowed on eBay's terms of service, and that is not something that I was made aware of because of experience. I'm not a criminal. What? I'm not a criminal. No. New Leaf also lined up pretty well with a brand new trend right around 2012-ish era that was watching games, watching streamers play things. Some of the more popular Let's Plays included Zach Scott, Sugar Conroy, and Abdallah Smash. Needless to say, whether involved or not, the game was grabbing attention online everywhere. There was no shortage of people you could find to sit down and play the game with you. But something would happen in the fall of 2013 that would affect not just New Leaf's multiplayer, but the entire ecosystem of the Nintendo 3DS. Let's digress for a second and talk about the life and death of SwapNote. SwapNote, otherwise known as Nintendo Letterbox for PAL regions, was, I guess technically still is, a messaging app for 3DS. It launched in December of 2011 and primarily acted as the only way to directly communicate with your friends on 3DS outside of any games. Users could send messages to each other containing pictures, doodles, and small sound clips. I remember a lot of people comparing it with PictoChat at the time, but unlike with PictoChat, it was not instant messaging meant for others nearby, but meant for players with some distance in between. So with the infectiously friendly nature of Animal Crossing that used to just be becoming friends with whoever was in whoever's town, this was a great way to communicate and set up visits. If you had items you needed, or a petition, or Katie, or maybe you just wanted to plan to hang out with friends who don't have their gate constantly open, this was a handy service to be installed. But on October 31st of 2013, without any warning in advance, Nintendo shut down the service due to This absolutely killed any form of reaching out on the console. Okay, yeah, you could still use the Street Pass aspect of SwapNote, but you could also not? With the only way of writing my 3DS friends gone, and because of its untimely death alongside a dwindling player base going back to school, I lost contact with so many of the people I met that summer. There was no such thing as Discord, and I didn't have a smartphone yet, so I never really set up alternate ways of keeping in touch. Nintendo later came out with Swapdoodle, a sequel service, around the time of the update, but the damage was done. I hope they all went on to live fulfilling lives. I'm sure they did. This story does have a small, nice ending, though. It turns out 2 of the greatest friends from that summer had their Nintendo IDs connected to the Switch, so we did have a happy reunion 7 years later. Well, as happy as you could be, playing. Okay. Let's finish by doing the part of this video that I kinda don't want to do. Now, up to this point, I've done my best to try and avoid directly addressing differences between this game and New Horizons because I didn't want this video to be another reiteration of why New Horizons is the worst, but of course why New Leaf is the best. But when two games of such a close nature exist back to back within a series, it does raise some eyebrows when the comparisons are so uneven. So let's get to the bottom of it. Why does New Horizons pale in comparison to the vast amounts of new content introduced with New Leaf? Were we just too used to Nintendo going the extra mile for us and expected something similar with the Switch follow-up? Or perhaps the only reason New Leaf seemed amazing was because City Folk set the bar so low, and New Horizons bad because New Leaf put the bar so high. Or maybe they called it New Horizons to foreshadow the horizontal flat-ass characters who don't do shit other than eat sandwiches in the plaza!
Why are you the way that you are? Honestly, every time I try to do something fun or exciting, you make it not that way. I hate so much about the things that you choose to be.
A lot of people like to make the quantity versus quality argument where New Leaf has tons of content and Horizons has much more quality of life refinements and better graphics. But that comparison only works in 2021. Back in 2013, New Leaf really did have the best of both worlds. And of course New Horizons has more quality of life upgrades, it came out 8 years later. But even today, there are plenty of areas where New Leaf excels even in that department because New Horizons is fucking slow. I didn't see a lot of people talk about this, maybe because it was quarantine or because they never played New Leaf, but holy shit, New Horizons has zero respect for the player's time. In New Leaf, everything is so fast, the boot up screen is quick, the loading times are nothing, the animations are instant, and it's way faster to go to other towns. But in New Horizons, you're caught behind animation after animation, pointless screen after pointless screen, and a startup that takes several minutes. Bulk crafting does not exist. Bulk ordering does not exist. New Leaf has you ordering 10 items maximum a day with 2 delivery times. And New Horizons, the game where you actually need furniture, has a maximum of 5 a day and 1 delivery time. Also, golden tools actually mean something other than not breaking for longer, which shouldn't be significant, but when I was playing New Leaf for this video, I just kept waiting for my shovel to break after hitting rocks because I was so used to the dumb mechanic that is durability. And when I realized it wasn't going to, and that I wouldn't have to go through this slow crafting to create another one, only then did I realize how much New Horizons took away. It is a game all about looks and spectacle, but lacking zero interactivity, and I'm not just talking about the villagers here. Enter makeshift structures. Here's a common trend in New Horizons, making your house into a castle. See, with a little bit of silos and simple panels, add just a touch of custom designs, and you're all set. But in New Leaf, you want a castle for a house? Okay, fuck it, here you go. It's so easy. New Horizons requires players to fill in the gaps where the game cannot, and pushing that creativity is cool, but it shouldn't be mandatory. And what does it even amount to? And New Leaf, nah, fuck New Leaf. The very first Animal Crossing on GameCube, you get a ball you can throw around anywhere. In New Horizons, you can build an entire goddamn stadium, but this is your ball. This is what it does, and that's it. It's only for fucking show. New Horizons has such an empty dollhouse feel where the disconnect comes in the form of making something that looks magnificent but has zero utility. And for a game that's all about vanity and making other things appear visually pleasing, they sure are lacking a lot of furniture and customization options. Actually, I tell you what, earlier in the video we had a segment all about the things New Leaf added, but let's talk about all the things that didn't come back for New Horizons. Main Street, ordinances, Tortimer Island, Brewster, gyroids, any significant commercial presence that isn't a shop with one upgrade, Miimass, fruit variety, perfect fruit, barren trees, the timer, the megaphone, Nintendo items, Katrina. I'm not even gonna finish this list because it's endless. And yet somehow the thing missing that hurts the most is the fact that different colored lights don't change the hue and exterior of your house. And I am being 100% serious with this comment. This is such a minor mechanic, but not a complicated one. Why could they not so easily port this over? Once again, yes, we can address the fact that all of these things could be added in an eventual update to New Horizons, but this model is a toxic one. New Leaf was fully finished in 2012, localized in 2013, and got one update 3 years later that added so much onto an already finished game. New Horizons, 1 year after a worldwide release, is still catching up to base game New Leaf. Now, should we as consumers, as Animal Crossing veterans, really have to wait for Nintendo to finish a $60 game that we bought over a year ago? Facebook and Twitter certainly don't seem to think so. I I don't want to divert all the positivity from today into hating on New Horizons. The game is flawed, we've established this already. But I want to leave you with an interesting, albeit hypothetical look at the future of the series. Evidently, when Nintendo screwed up on the Wii, they went all in for New Leaf. They gave us a game, we played it, treasured it, made video essays about it 8 years later. But then they fumbled again with New Horizons. This currently puts us at a very advantageous point though for the game that comes next. We've seen Nintendo work hard to fix things before, and it's probable they could do it again. After all, with this being the second best-selling game on Switch, there are a lot of people to remind them just how much they dropped the ball. But see, that's the other thing. This is the second best-selling game on the Switch, and if you look at the series sales, Nintendo is probably thinking they did at least something right this time around. So we need to question whose voice is louder, the fans or the money? Will Nintendo interpret New Horizons as a success because of its crazy high sales? Or will they hear the backlash from their long-term audience who's been with them for multiple games in the series? Only time will tell us. But I can just tell you right now that I don't fucking know or care. Because no amount of sequels or spin-offs can ever change the fact that Animal Crossing New Leaf is still available right now. I've loved this game for years and will continue to despite whatever the future may hold, so New Leaf, thanks for being a real one. Here's to you.